Greetings fanboys and fangirls, Jared here with another video review from Fanboys Forever. Today we're going to be having a look at the brand new Masters of the Universe Masterverse New Eternia Battle Armor He-Man. Now here's a figure that's definitely drawn a lot of conversation, lots of debate even within the fandom. Ever since it was first unveiled, there has been so much discussion about this figure and the kind of new look that it brings for He-Man. Of course, the new Eternia line, to give a little bit of history, is all about kind of reinventing a lot of those original line concepts to reflect a new and revised continuity that's a little more sword and sorcery and a little more influenced by those original mini comics and books, while also blending some of the original concept artwork by Mark Taylor and others. Peppered in, we'll find lots of original, new, and exciting ideas, and I can't wait to see how Battle Armor He-Man has turned out. So with all of that out of the way, don't forget to subscribe, be sure to like the video, and let's go ahead and have a look at Battle Armor He-Man. Now we can see that he has the 40th anniversary sticker right there. I've not made it any secret that I'm not sure that I absolutely love the Masterverse styling of packaging or anything like that, but it's okay. Even though it's a little plain and I'm not really sure it does the line justice artistically, one thing is sure, it allows the actual figures themselves to shine through. One thing that does not get to shine through, unfortunately, is the incredible artwork. The unbelievable paintings that they have commissioned for these figures are true things of beauty, and I would buy religiously an entire poster series of these things and hang them up all throughout the fanboy cave. But they haven't offered that, and you can only see it on the side of the packaging. If there was some way to put this on the front, I think that these things would be so much more appealing on the shelf. And of course, you can see that the hits keep coming with an unbelievable piece of artwork back here on the back. I'm telling you, I've seen a lot of this artwork over the past 2 or 3 years, and this is one of the absolute finest pieces, if not the finest piece that I've seen them do. There's something about this that absolutely brings to mind that Frank Frazetta artwork, that Earl Norm artwork. It's like a fusion of the two, and it's just so incredible. So Battle Armor He-Man, the most powerful armor in the universe. Donning his powerful battle armor, General Adam sailed farther than any ship in the Eternos Armada in search of the mythical Isle of Grayskull and the legendary Power Sword. Upon finding the sword, he says, "I have the power," and transforms into He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. You know, there's just so much that is interesting and cool about this bio that it honestly, the new Eternia continuity, needs its own video, so I won't even try to get into that here. We do have one of the most eclectic cross-sells of all time at the bottom, including a figure that does not resemble this He-Man very much, but is indeed supposed to be him, and we'll be talking about that as we go through. And just in case you need it, here is the barcode. With all that out of the way, let's look at the actual figure itself. And here he is, General Adam, Battle Armor He-Man, one of the most hotly debated and completely controversial Masterverse figures to be released so far in the line. So looking at General Adam here, I have to say, first impressions are very, very, very good. I'm not sure how you could look at this and not see just the absolute Frazetta-esque kind of majesty going on here. It is a perfect melding of He-Man along with a lot of those barbarian kind of tropes, especially that classical oil painting styled artwork. Let's begin right at the very source of the controversy itself, the head sculpt. There has been just a huge amount of discussion about this head. Every single time I see a review or an early sample or something, it seems that this is always discussed. It's always brought to the forefront. There's a huge amount of discussion about why it doesn't look like the original prototype that was on the back of the packaging. There's a huge amount of discussion about why it doesn't look like some early samples. It seems that there are 3 or 4 different versions of this head sculpt floating around out there, almost as if Mattel themselves really struggled trying to figure out how to interpret this sculpt and get it through production in one piece. Things always, always, always change in production. Taking a sculpt and creating a tool from it is not always going to be a precise technical one-to-one translation. It just isn't. Everything and anything can and will happen during the sculpting process. Every kind of distortion you can imagine can work against you in trying to bring your artistic vision, the thing that you sculpted so lovingly in a 3D render or whatever, creating thousands of copies of that thing and trying to maintain artistic integrity is going to be incredibly difficult. I remember some of the first early samples that people got a hold of. There was a huge outcry, and I'll show you a picture right here as to what that early sample looked like. And it's a little obvious why they were upset. And people kept saying, okay, the sculpt has been changed. The sculpt has been altered. I can't believe this. It doesn't look anything like what they promised. But the truth is that I'm not so sure that a whole lot of the sculpting was altered whatsoever. Sure, things aren't as sharp as they're originally going to be on a render or on a prototype, because that's something that always happens in production. But the big thing that I think that people aren't understanding is the absolute crux that all action figure faces are a slave to in this modern day of action figure production. And that's that we're no longer, in a lot of cases, hand painting a lot of facial detail. Instead, there's two different methods that are occurring. Number one, we have a lot of facial printing technology going on. So now you have things like most Hasbro figures now, practically everything on the faces. You can see like the pixels of those prints on those faces. Number two, tamper-graphic application process, or like a mask process, to where the pre-made kind of labels, almost, if you will, are baked onto the face of the figure in kind of a mask situation, to where they put it on there and it sticks, and then you have your eyes, you have your whatever else. But usually it's the eyes, and this alleviates the need for hand painting, which I think came to a head in the Force Awakens 6-inch Black Series line. I think that's when most companies are like, okay, this isn't working anymore, this is awful. So I think, and I could be wrong because I don't know, I'm not a fancy enough social media guy for Mattel to invite me to go see their headquarters. Instead, all I can tell you is that I'm pretty sure that this is a tamper-graphic, like face mask situation, where the tamper-graphic is stamped onto each figure. Now, that's going to allow for some slight variation on each figure. The whole issue becoming whenever the mask is stamped slightly incorrectly. And it just takes less than like 1/8 of an inch, and it can throw everything off. Unfortunately, a lot of those early samples, those eye tamper graphics were printed on or applied too far up the head. And what happened was the bulbous part of the sculpt that is meant to receive that eye tamper graphic was left exposed as skin. And people didn't understand it. At least I don't think they did. And I tried to tell a few people, or tried to educate a few people in some of the comments and just offer my 2 cents. You can clearly see by looking at the picture that what was meant to be eyes look like giant bags under He-Man's eyes. And because of this, it threw off every proportion of that face sculpt. And what really is it's an incredible head sculpt, was thrown off in early samples and early pictures by some production problems. And this is probably representative of some of the later ones, because this, for some reason, got in some people's hands early. I'm not sure what it was, but that's kind of the danger of those early samples, because a lot of the times they don't have everything lined out very quickly. I was talking to a hero of mine that I got to meet recently that worked for Hasbro for lots and lots of years, and he was explaining this situation to me. With the Raiders of the Lost Ark toy line, the Indiana Jones toy line, and if you remember that 3 3/4 toy line, there was some real problems with facial application on those. And he said that that was caught very, very early, yet still there had already been hundreds of those figures that went through. So it's amazing how quickly that something like that can happen. But I feel very strongly that the sample that I have in hand, that of course this was just blind straight from Big Bad Toy Store, that this was a fortuitous thing that I just happened to get one that was not in that situation. Heck, if you look closely on that first sample I've shown you, even the lips are slightly misprinted. You can see that mine is aligned very, very well. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. There's always going to be some little issues here and there with paint, but I am very happy to say that I think that I got one that is incredibly representative of what they originally wanted to do. So I don't think hardly anything changed in terms of sculpting. I kind of think that this is a non-controversy, and it does seem that the more people that get this guy in hand with decent paint samples, the more that are seeing the absolute quality of this head sculpt. And let me tell you, it is a banger in hand. Even if it's not coming across right here on camera, hopefully you can see what I'm seeing and see that this is just beautiful. And now this gets me to the final mystery. What about this? This is clearly a little different. Yes, it is a little different, but that's because what you're looking at is what appears to be a hand-painted prototype, especially on the eyes. Sure, I think that always makes a lot of these figures look better, because that, if you can get someone like an artist or the actual action figure artist to go in there and just meticulously paint it and get it absolutely perfect, yeah, it's going to improve it. But I'll tell you what doesn't look as good is the beard. They painted it just straight up brown. There is no real highlighting in the hair. It looks much better for He-Man to have a blonde beard. And I'm not really sure what the idea was back there to just give him a completely brown beard. It strays a little too much from that classic He-Man look. So I am very, very happy with what we got here. So what about the actual figure itself? I mean, the coolest head sculpt, the best paint in the world, is not going to do a thing for you if the actual figure isn't any good. Well, I've definitely been a little confused about how I was going to feel about this design overall ever since I first saw it. You may recall me discussing this what seems like a lifetime ago when they first revealed it. But I have to say, getting it in hand, this design really, really works for me. Originally, my thought was, hey, I'm going to take off a bunch of this extra stuff. Don't think I'm going to use the Highlands shield here. Don't think I'm going to use the big shoulder pad or the kind of thigh armor here or the weird belt buckle. But no, getting it in hand, yeah, I think I do want to use this stuff. It's just cool. I don't know how else to put it. It works. Now, I have my misgivings with Mattel, of course, like we all do, but it does seem like they're one of the very few companies that here lately, actual in-hand product looks quite a bit better than their mock-ups and prototypes. I'm not sure exactly what is to blame for that or what's to credit for that, depending on which direction you look at that in. But it does seem that in-hand products are looking much better, or at least a modicum better than those original pictures. So what's the magic here? What's making this work as well as it is? So to be sure, honestly, they're not deviating very much from the original Battle Armor He-Man design here. As I pointed out earlier, you've got a giant shoulder pad, you have some thigh armor, and kind of a different gauntlet designed to hold the shield. Other than that, there isn't a whole lot of deviation, honestly. Of course, He-Man has a beard here. It's kind of its own thing, but it's pretty traditional, and I think that's the first strength. They are leaning on the new Eternia He-Man body here, and there are several elements taken directly from that figure. You can see him right here, and you can see that a whole bunch of the body is just reused, the entire base body. That is a really, really good thing, because that was a fantastic He-Man figure that I highly suggest. Not only do we have an era of traditional kind of styling going on here, but we also have the ability to customize this figure to kind of make it what you want it to be. So is there a piece you don't like? Mattel has completely given you the option to where you can just start chipping away those things that maybe you're not as big a fan of. For me, Battle Armor He-Man always has the battle axe. That's just, in my mind, that is the look. That's part of Battle Armor He-Man, is he's got the axe. In my own headcanon, I've always said that Battle Armor He-Man uses his power axe as like part of his, it's like a trade out. It's a part of the power up. It's a figure that still holds up on the back as well because of the incredible shield. And I have to compliment them for using the classic He-Man logo, which is both an H and an M, which is incredible. And it's just beautiful. The paint hit that they used, which is one large, I think, tampographic, that they've kind of printed onto the shield, it's all worn, and it's like a family crest of atoms, which, you know, I don't know why it would be an H and an M there, General Atom, but still, maybe He-Man is like a legacy that they pass on in this new version. We're not sure. I think there's going to be a comic that explains more of it. I'm really liking the kind of Battle Cat head that's on the front of the belt buckle there. So there's so many little things. I think the one thing that is hurting the aesthetic a little is when you don't have the shield in, this looks a little too techy in my view right here. But this is not really meant to be aesthetic. It's really meant to be functional more than anything. And functional it is because the shield goes right on there beautifully. And so for me, I would say that it will be very rare that I don't have the shield just clamped right on right here. It is a wonderfully secure connection. There's sort of like Captain America's original shield from the Joe Simon and Jack Kirby days right there. So there's kind of a shape of that, which I really do like. So he also does come with not only the power axe, which thankfully, and for the first time fully painted, they actually have a color discrepancy in the bandages here. And you can actually see that it's been wrapped up as if that's, you know, what's going to give him a grip to hold this thing. Thankfully, they also include the power sword. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I don't think that Battle Armor He-Man, I don't think this is his main weapon, but that's kind of the thing, right? That he's using the axe, but as he gets to this island, he is looking for none other than the mythical power sword. So you can get some epic kind of displays as General Atom here searches for this sword. It is slightly disappointing that they do not include any kind of sheath or hilt for this sword, but nonetheless, He-Man does look good brandishing this weapon. So there's one accessory I've not talked about, and that is the knife that goes in his boot. Now, if you notice earlier, if you go back and look, you can actually see at the beginning of the review there was no knife in the boot. We'll say he threw the knife at Merman on the boat ride over. And originally I thought, okay, maybe I lost it somewhere, and I had to go back and look at my footage, and sure enough, it just wasn't there. Clearly, it was just a mix-up at the factory. Somebody didn't put the knife in the boot like they were supposed to, and things like this happen. So thankfully, I've contacted Big Bad Toy Store. I'm sure that they'll help me out. They've always had excellent customer service. It's very important that you always make sure that you buy from a trusted source, and that way they can help you out in situations like this. You can see that I do have a knife in there. It is the exact same knife that you would get because this is the one that came with New Eternia He-Man. The thing is that the gold is just a little lighter here. I think that the one that you get, according to pictures that I've seen online, it's just a little bit of a deeper gold. So just so that I'm not being disingenuous and not misrepresenting anything, that's not the actual knife you would get, but I'm putting it there, you know, just so that you can see how it looks. It's definitely important that I actually show you the modularity that I discussed before in terms of armor customization. Let's see just how traditional we can make this He-Man. Now what's great is that there is a strap here that actually pegs right over, and you can see that that just unbuckles right there. Now honestly, you could probably just slide it off, but that gauntlet is going to get in the way, so that comes right off. So here's a look at a slightly more traditional version that still has the thigh armor. I think it looks a little weird this way, I'll be honest, because I think that you've got that thigh armor giving him kind of a wide hip look, and there's nothing to balance it out up here. I don't think it's that bad, but I think it's a little weird. You need something to give him that extra bulk up there. So to me, you can't really have this without the shoulder pad. But there is another strap back there. So it's great that you're not having to force this stuff off. It's naturally just comes off. And sure enough, underneath, he has the exact same belt, detail, and body type of the New Eternia He-Man. It's not to say it's exactly the same, because Mattel did go to the trouble of recoloring it that classic orange, whereas here in the original release, it is gold. You know, at first I thought for sure you could probably ease this off, but I'm just not seeing a really good way to do it. I think it is just glued on there. To me, this looks like about the best you can do in terms of making him look very just traditional, very classical. So I think it works nicely. You do get a couple of extra hands. You can see that we have one fist, and of course, He-Man's extended hand, which I don't know. I guess they always do that for a shield or something. He does include one final accessory, and of course, that is an interchangeable breastplate. Just like the original Battle Armor He-Man, this is the battle damage here. Of course, in the original figure from the 80s, my first He-Man figure, thanks to my older sister, this would be an action feature and it would switch down and show you that he's getting damaged. You don't get two other plates to show, you know, a little damage and a lot of damage. You just get the lot of damage plate. And honestly, that's what I like anyway. I wouldn't have cared to see the mid-damage version. I think it looks great. It's sculpted in. It's not just a paint application. The way that this goes in is just a couple of prongs in the back. So let's see how easy it is to switch out. In order to switch this out, there are two little connection points here. All you have to do is just kind of push those apart, and you can see the two little recesses that the tabs go into. And you take that off, and it's kind of funny. He-Man, this part actually is a part of the sculpt in the back to give it a lot more security, which I think is great, honestly. It would have been unfortunate if the back came off too, because it would have led to kind of a loose look. What you do is you just get your fingernail up under there, and you're left with this cool kind of tech detail. Now, you tell me that isn't them thinking of everything, you know, making sure that it looks cool underneath it, that there's all this circuitry. It definitely suggests that kind of high technology and kind of mixed with sword and sorcery kind of thing that we love about Masters of the Universe. Of course, we put that on there, and now you're ready to replace the main chest piece. And here's General Adam after a little bit of trouble on the high seas. One more little thing that I just want to show you that you can do is there is some modularity between these two He-Men. All you have to do is pop the heads off. And it's fascinating how there's even modularity with Origins, which I'll show you later, but Mattel is very much invested in this interchangeable system throughout all their He-Man lines. So I really appreciate that. So if the beard head still isn't for you, if I couldn't sway you with my arguments earlier about how legitimately awesome it is, General Adam got a shave. And honestly, I think that looks really cool too. So if you want this to be as traditional a 6-inch, 7-inch Battle Armor He-Man as you can possibly get without paying an arm and a leg on eBay for that Masters of the Universe Classics version, then this is the way to go. And speaking of that version, I would be remiss not to haul him out. It's a very special figure to me. I did make one custom little touch to this guy by adding a little bit of red to the boots because I wanted him to resemble the original figure more. Maybe I'm making much ado about nothing, but it always does fascinate me to see that these figures are actually a little taller than the Masters of the Universe Classics He-Man. But it's just He-Man. The other figures go pretty well in scale. So it's great to see them side by side. I think this succeeds more as a tribute to the original. The Four Horsemen are awfully hard to beat in their craft. I think we all know that, and it would be foolish to act like that wasn't the case. However, I do think that there's still merit between them. And of course, here he is with the intended heads. And yes, you can actually use the bearded head on your original new Eternia He-Man. And I think this is pretty nifty myself. I think this is really nice. Honestly, if they ever do that live action He-Man movie, I don't know, maybe think about doing the beard. I don't know. I think it would be a great way to kind of add that little bit of superficial grit that would maybe bring it to that next level. And as I said earlier, because they are madmen down at Mattel, this isn't just setting on there, this is actually on there really well. I'll be honest, it actually fits on this peg better than the actual figure. So I don't know what that means. But this, for some reason, this looks incredible. I don't know. It's magic. And yeah, that's pretty cool too. Oh man, that's actually awesome. It's giving me all kinds of ideas now. Yeah, I like it. Oh man, yes. Snake armor for sure. Yeah, I'm liking this. This is the way to go. So I do have to tell on myself for one little funny thing that I did. I probably spent, when I was trying to put the shoulder pad back on here, I probably spent 20 minutes trying to figure it out, how it went back on. I had it backwards, and I had this part over on this end, and I thought for sure it was supposed to fit back over because I couldn't remember the way it was originally when I cut it out. So that's extremely embarrassing. Let me tell you, I put this little strap through all sorts of paces trying to make it fit on in a way it wasn't supposed to, and that's a tough piece of plastic right there, a little rubberized piece of plastic. So kudos to them for it not breaking, and in response to my ignorance. So of course there is another head switch I'd like to show you. This is with the 40th anniversary original toy tribute He-Man. As you can see, the head is just designed to look exactly like that original figure, and I think that this looks really, really good, actually. It looks quite a bit better, a fair bit better anyway, than I expected it to. It's just a cool look and a way of thinking about that original toy if it had been designed this way. So it looks really neat. All right, so very quickly we'll look at the articulation on this guy. There's not a lot, that's any different than what we've seen previously, and of course it kind of follows your standard patterns here. Of course we have left and right, a little bit of up and down, and it does a really good job. Here we have lots of sway back and forth and lots of in and out for the diaphragm. And then we do have a swivel at the waist. It's hidden nicely by the kind of armored skirt there. We do have a lot of good range with the arms able to fold in really nicely and fold way out practically to 90 degrees. We do have a bicep cut right there. We do have a double joint at the elbow, which was kind of hard to freeze, so you might want to use a little heat there. And then we do have rotations and hinges at the hands. And down here we do have a little bit of motion up and down, but it's a little inhibited by the armored skirt. However, once you remove that, it would help a little. As you can see, it kind of flexes back if you need it to. We do have the splits. They are hindered a little bit by this, but I don't see He-Man doing splits any more than that anyway. We do have a swivel. We have double jointed knees, which are really effective. We do have a swivel at the boot. We do have ankle rocker pivot. We have hinges that go up and down, and that will do it for He-Man's articulation. Well, friends, I certainly hope that you've enjoyed the review, and I hope that I've done just a little bit to maybe alleviate some of the controversy surrounding this particular figure. It's definitely interesting to see such a departure from He-Man's traditional look, and I think it's really healthy for the brand to go in a few different directions every now and then, and I really love that they're attempting to stake their claim with their own unique spin on it with new Eternia, especially when you have a sample that turns out really well, aside from, the absence of the boot knife, which was just a funny one-off type of thing, and it could happen to any of us. So of course, maybe just double check it if you see one out and about. Of course, I've not seen this at actual retailers just yet, and I'm sure that it will be out there pretty soon. If you're blind buying, just make sure you're buying from a reputable seller to make sure that they can take care of you if anything goes wrong. Overall, though, I have to say this is definitely one of the better figures that's been released so far for the entire line of Masterverse. It really did surprise me. I wasn't really sure how enthusiastic I would be about this, but it turns out that you just never know what to expect with this line, and this was definitely a pleasant surprise in all of the right ways. So remember, if you've enjoyed the review today, I would sure appreciate it if you would give the video a like, and especially if you would subscribe to the channel. It really does help us out. And of course, be sure to comment and let me know what you think. Do you feel that maybe it still has a lot of the issues that a lot of fans described with it, even with the sample where the eyes are a little bit better aligned? Or do you feel that a lot of that was overblown? I would love to hear your opinions down below. And as always, God bless you and yours. And I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Fanboy out.